Hare Krishna, good morning. Please accept my obeisance, Shai Prabhupada. Omakyana Timrandasya Chananjala Shalakim Shakshram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chichitayam Abhishtam Staptam Yena Bhutale Svamapradamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiro Shri Yudapadkamanam Shirom Vaishnavam Sham Shiyupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijanasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganalita Shivshakam Vitam He Krishna Karuna Sinudina Bando Jatpate Gopesha Gopakantara and the Kantanastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vinnavanashvi Vishabhani Sutadevi Pranamana Haripi Pankrakota Vishanki Pasan Vesha Padna Pavanavyo Vaishnavyo Namanam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanam Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadhikam Bhakta Vinay Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desaptarani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So this morning we will discuss chapter 17, the divisions of faith. So in chapter 16, Krishna established that faithful followers of Shastra are divine and that the faithless are demoniac. But into which category does a man fit who follows faith with something other than Shastra? Krishna answered this by describing how the modes of material nature determines one's personal faith, worship, and eating. So in other words, Krishna has said at the end of chapter 16, those who are following Shastra, they are divine. And those who are not following Shastra, they are demoniac and they act according to their own whims. They don't get perfection, happiness, or no supreme destination. So to spiritual life means following scriptures, the rules and regulations. Scriptures which are meant for our spiritual elevation. But then Arjuna is asking, yes, but there are others who do not follow Shastra, but they follow other rules. What's their destination? Are they in goodness, passion, or ignorance, or ignorance? So we'll start with reading this first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Arjuna Uvacha Yeshastra Vidimuchya Yayante Shahayam Viram Desham Nistatuka Krishna Satvamaho Rajastamam. Arjuna inquired of Krishna, what is the situation of those who follow the principles of scripture, but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or ignorance? So the Srila Prabhupada writes, now if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scripture injunctions, what is his position? So that's the question of Arjuna. We must understand the connection with the previous chapter, that which is, and why Arjuna is asking this question here in text 1. That so that is the point here. And Juna inquires about the position of one who, with faith, follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scripture. Text 2. Text 2. Bhagavan vacha trivida bhavati shraddha dehinam svabhava svabhavaja sattviki rajasi chaiva tamasi chetitam shrinu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: in goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we'll see in this chapter. In this chapter, we will hear about faith in the modes. We will hear about food in the modes. We will hear about austerities in the modes, but also austerity of the mind. What is it? Austerity of the body, austerity of speech. That and at the end of this chapter, the last verses will, like at the end of nearly each chapter, will point at all these sacrifices that in these modes they are useless unless done for the pleasure of the absolute truth. And Om Tat Sat, the pleasure of Krishna. We will analyze this Om Tat Sat at the end of this chapter. So that means those who know in the purport, those who know the rules and regulations of the scriptures, but out of laziness or indolence give up following these rules and regulations, are governed by the modes of nature. So if we follow the rules and regulations, because these rules and regulations are meant to connect us with Krishna, we are not ruled by material nature. Otherwise, we are ruled by material nature. According to their previous activities in goodness, passion, and ignorance, they acquire a nature which is of a specific quality. But this nature can be changed if one associates with a bona fide spiritual master and abides by his rules and scriptures. Reality, one can change his position from ignorance to goodness, from passion to goodness. The conclusion is that blind faith in a particular mode of nature cannot help a person to become elevated to the perfectional stage. One has to consider things very carefully with intelligence in the association of a bona fide spiritual master. Thus, one can change his position to higher modes of nature. So, it is important to develop, we will here to develop this mode of goodness, that a devotee's life is in goodness, means clean, getting up early in the morning, and taking a bath, put tilak on 12 places with mantras, neck beads, clean clothes, going to the temple, chant japa. That's cleanliness. Outside, by cleansing the body. Inside, by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That is goodness. And what is the importance of this goodness? Importance of this goodness is explained here in a quote by Srila Prabhupada. It's a little long, but we have only a few quotes on this chapter, so I will read it. And Prabhupada mainly explains here, if you want to cook, you need fire. Otherwise, the food will not be prepared. He compares the cooking, the fire, with goodness. So we will hear here. Without coming to the platform of Sattva Guna, no one can advance in spiritual life. That is a fact. Just as nobody is allowed to enter law college unless he is a graduate. That restriction is there. How will he understand law? He must be a graduate. So similarly, first of all, one has to come to the platform of Sattva Guna. Then spiritual knowledge begins. Because spiritual knowledge is above Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna is the best quality. When one's brain is clear and he can see things as they are, no hazy understanding, but clear understanding. So Sattva Guna is the qualification of a Brahmin. Sattva Guna is required to understand things as they are. An example is given of fire, smoke, and wood. Everyone knows that from wood fire will come. When you ignite wood, there is smoke first of all, and then the blazing flame. So one may say it is wood. It is all one. Now, although it is one, you still require the flame rather than the smoke or the wood if you want to work. When you get a flame, then you can work, you can cook, you can get heat, you can get light, so many things. So that is required, not that because I have wood, I have everything. That is raskaldom. You have to ignite a flame. That is Sattva Guna. Therefore, in our society, we first of all try to reform the fallen soul of most infected material person. Come to the states of flame, because without flame you cannot work. It is not possible. It is just like Jagya. We perform fire sacrifice, but we want to see there is a flame, not smoke, although it is the same thing. You cannot be satisfied. Now here is smoke. It is all right. This is fire. Without there being fire, there cannot be smoke. When there is smoke, one can understand there is fire, even if it is far away. When smoke is coming from a forest, people immediately understand there is a forest fire. Although smoke is an indication of fire, it is not fire. Similarly, with so-called meditation, so-called spiritualism, concocted ideas, there is some touch of spiritual life, but it is not spiritual life. One should understand it is not spiritual life. It is called abhas. Abhas means just like the day, full sunlight. Early in the morning you cannot see the sun, but there is light. There is no darkness. So similarly, Arjuna's inquiry is very nice. That is, one who is not following the Shastra Vidhi, the direction of the Shastra, but there's some faith, some vague idea. What will be the consideration? Will they be taken as Sattva-gun or Rajagun or Tamagun? So if you simply remain satisfied with the wood, that is called Tamagun, not developed. Again, when there is smoke, there is an other platform. But when one appreciates the flames, that is Sattva Guna. Therefore, Krishna says here, Trivida Bhavadishada Deinam Svabhavacha. If one is cultivating his life like hawks, cats, and dogs, and his behavior is also like that, he remains in that position. One was advanced was worshipping the deity, having a bath 3 times daily and chanting mantras, Hare Krishna. These two are not equal. That is not possible because one is situated in the sattva gun and the other is situated in tamagun. Although the tamagunas, the persons who are in the darkness of ignorance, have their faith, it is not that they have no faith, they have faith, but faith is in the lowest status of life. That state, the faith will not help them in spiritual realization. Therefore, Krishna says, Trividha bhavati shada denam svabhavadya, means natural, because his body is not yet purified. He remains in the states of tamagun or ignorance. Trividha bhavati shada denam svabhavadya. Therefore, we have to change. Just like a diseased man can be changed into a healthy person, provided he follows the medical rules and regulations regarding medicine and diet. So if one does not follow the prescribed duties, rules, and regulations, he remains diseased. It is not that we have now become free. We can talk nonsensically and behave like nonsense. Still, we are advanced. You have to judge by the symptoms with sattva-gun, rajagun, or tamagun. The sadhu is determined by his behavior. It's from a lecture by Bhagavad Gita on the first 3 verses on the 17th chapter in Honolulu in 1974. I've observed that Srila Prabhupada did not give much lectures on the 14th chapter and the 17th chapter, these 3 modes. Only the essential points. What could be the reason for that? Certainly, we can study these modes, but it's more important to get out of it. That is certainly. And yeah, a point. Now, go back. That's verse 2. What do we learn here? In summary, one's fate is determined by the particular mode a person has acquired. One can elevate himself from the lower modes to goodness by association of a bona fide spiritual master. So we don't focus on what's in our minds and what we think is best. That's in the modes we have. But we have to come to goodness. Goodness is very important. We should keep us always in goodness. It's also a mental attitude. Don't go in passion. Try to finish things quickly. No, do it with deep consciousness and one after another. And you will do much more than trying to run into passion. And that is important. And besides acting in passion, if one acts in passion, one becomes very tired. And one acts in goodness, one can go on for a long time. But different modes, different approaches. Okay, text 3. Text 3, we go back to, yeah. This is probably the most essential verse on this theme. That sattvana rupa sarvasya shraddha bhavati bharata shraddhamayoyam purusa yosha shraddha saivasa. The son of Bharat, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves of a particular fate. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the mode she has acquired. So I quote a few lines, essential lines for the purport. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with certain persons. One has certain interests and associates with certain persons. It is stated in the 50th chapter that we are originally a fragmental part and parcel of the Lord. Therefore, one is originally transcendental to the modes of material nature. So we cannot feel at home as long as we are not transcendental. That's our real nature. But when one forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one comes in contact with the modes of material nature in conditioned life. He generates his own position by association with the varieties of material nature. Therefore, one has to become cleansed of material contamination that he has acquired in order to regain his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So we have to remove passion and ignorance and come to goodness. And from goodness, in goodness we perform devotional service, and from there we transcend. And that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Tatora jastamova kamla visayas etera davatam sitve sattve vasila. So when one serves the spiritual master and hear the Bhagavatam regularly, then all these troublesome to the heart, which is the mode of passion and ignorance, are removed, and we come to goodness. That in material life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. In purified goodness, one can understand the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That the contaminated modes of material nature expand to the heart. It should be understood that if one's heart is in the mode of goodness, one's faith is also in the mode of goodness. So we must be careful to be in the mode of goodness. There's so many warnings here from Prabhupada to be in the mode of goodness. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the modes of pure goodness. But the heart is tainted with different types of religious principles. Thus, according to different faith, there are different kinds of worship, and we will hear in that in the next verse, these different types of worship that so yeah. This was text 3. Faith is born of goodness, but becomes mixed due to the influence of different modes of nature. The varieties of religion are created. So we can see that some religions are more tend to ignorance, maybe. Others more to passion, and others to goodness. It does not mean that these names here, that we have to put an etiquette on it. Because we have seen practitioners of Christianity, some may be in goodness, some in passion, some in ignorance. That it depends how what their attitude is practically. That so text 4. Those influenced by the modes of material nature worship various features of the material world, but those in transcendental goodness worship Vishnu. So that's the essence of this verse 4, which we will read now. That Yayanti Satvika Devan Yaksha Raksham Sirajasa Pitran Pit Pretam Bhuta Ganam Samye Yayanti Tamasachana. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods, those in the mode of passion worship the demons, and those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. That and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes a few very interesting points that he says. In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. Those in goodness worship a particular, they are worshipping a particular demigod for a particular purpose. During the Second War, there was a man in Calcutta who worshipped Hitler because thanks to the war he had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the mode of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God, and that the same result will be obtained. A little further, sexual service is considered to be in the mode of darkness. God worship is for persons who are transcendentally situated in pure goodness. That in conclusion, the different qualities of the material modes of nature can be purified through association with a person of transcendental nature. How to change your modes? We discussed that before. How to change the modes by association. It's a very important point. That now Krishna will speak about acts of austerities and penances. Text 5-6. Ashastravitam goram tapyante tapojana dabha ankara samyukta kama balanvita karsayanta sarirastam bhuta kraman ashitasam Mam Shaivanta Sarirasham Tam Fidi Ashranisayan. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, were foolish and would torture the material elements of the body as well as the super soul dwelling within, are known to be demons. So in the purport, there are persons who manufacture modes of austerities and penances which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. Actually, they act out of pride, false ego, lust, and attachment to the material world. But such activities not only is the combination of material elements of which the body is constructed, by such activities not only the combination of material elements of which the body is constructed is disturbed, but also the Supreme Personality of Godhead living within the body. Near the end. One should always remember the ultimate end of demoniac people as described in the previous chapter. The Lord forces them to take birth in the wombs of demoniac persons. Consequently, they will live by demoniac principles, life after life, without knowing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If, however, such persons are fortunate enough to be guided by a spiritual master who can direct them to the path of Vedic wisdom, they can get out of disentanglement and ultimately achieve the supreme goal. That so if here So we have a picture of Hiranyakasipu, who did this great austerities to the point that his flesh was eaten away by ants. So those in the mode of ignorance manufacture their own way of austerities to neglect the scriptures. They torture their bodies as well as the Supreme Lord living within. Now we will hear about modes of eating, sacrifice, austerity, charity. Sacrifice, in the beginning of the 18th chapter, we will maybe come to that today. Krishna will say, some sages say that sacrifice, austerity, and charity should never be given up. But we will hear at the end of this chapter, the sacrifice, austerity, and charity should be done for Om Tat Sat, to please the Supreme Lord. That otherwise they don't bear results, that their results are in the moods. And that's useless. Text 7. Text 7. One who understands which modes eating, sacrifices, charity, austerity, and charity are in, are wise. Those who cannot discriminate are foolish. I will read this verse now. That is what we have to learn from the verse. And then we read the verse. Aharastvapi sarvasya trivido bhavati priya sahyastapastata danam tesham vedam ipam shino. Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifice, austerity, and charity. Now hear of the distinction between them. So, the purport. Those who consider all kinds of sacrifices of food or charity to be the same cannot discriminate. They are foolish. There are missionary workers who advocate that one can do whatever he likes and attain perfection. So that is a foolishness. Now, text 8, 9, and 10 is about food in the modes. And in text 10, Srila Prabhupada gives as an elaborate purport explaining as the essential points we have to consider about food. But I first read the 3 verses about food, which is very important. It's also practical for us. Text 8. Ayusatva balagokya sukha pete vidardhana rasya snigdha stira ridya ahara satvika priya. Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purifies one's existence, and gives strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Text 9. Katvam la lavanat yusna tiksharuksa vidahina ahara rachasasyasta dukha sukamaya pada. Foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. But such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. Sour, salty, hot, and pungent. And now modes in ignorance. 10. Yatayaman katarasam utti payusitam sayat ushistam apisamedyam bhojanam tamasapayam. Foods prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten, food that is stateless, decomposed, putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to in the mode of darkness. So this is the purport, and I will read most of it. But maybe someone wants to read the first paragraph, this paragraph, which is on the screen. So please read.
I can do it.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Of food is to increase the duration of life, purify the mind and the body strength. This is the only purpose. In the past, those that best aid health and increase life's duration, such as milk product, sugar, rice, wheat, fruits and vegetables. These foods are very to those in the mood of goodness. Some other foods, such as baked corn and while not very palatable in themselves, can be made pleasant when mixed with the milk and other foods. They are then in the mood of goodness. All these foods are pure by nature. They are quite distinct from untouchable things like meat and liquor. Fatty foods, as mentioned in the 8 bars, have no connection with animal fat obtained by slaughter. Animal fat is available in the form of milk, which is the most wonderful of all foods. Milk, butter, cheese, and similar products give animal fat in the form of which rules out any need for the killing of innocent creatures. It is only through brute mentality that is killing goes on. The civilized method of obtaining needed fat is by milk. Slaughter is the way of subhumans. Protein is simply available through split peas, dal, whole wheat, etc.
Thank you. Someone else want to read the second paragraph, short paragraph? Foods in the mode of passion.
I can read it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, just a second. Food in the mode of passion, which are butter. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, just a second, please. Okay. Food in the mode of passion, which are butter, too salty or too hot or overly mixed with red pepper, cause misery and reduce the mucus in the stomach, leading to disease. Food in the mode of ignorance or darkness are essentially those that are not flesh. Any food cooked more than 3 hours before it is eaten, except prasadam, food offered to the Lord, is considered to be in the mode of darkness because they are decomposing. Such foods give a bad odor, which often attract people in the mode or in this mode, but repulse those in the mode of goodness.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will read a few parts of the last paragraph. So remnants of food may be eaten only when they are part of a meal that was first offered to the Supreme Lord or first eaten by saintly persons, especially the spiritual master. But otherwise, the remnants of food are considered to be in a mode of darkness as they create infection, disease, The best food is remnants of what is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord says that he accepts preparations of vegetables, flour, and milk when offered with devotion, patram pushpam phalam toyam. Any food prepared by the injunctions of the scriptures and offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be taken, even if long prepared long ago. Personally, the Personality of Godhead can be taken and offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can be taken even if prepared long ago, because such food is transcendental. Therefore, to make food antiseptic, eatable, and palatable for all persons, one should offer food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Interesting that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that. Of course, food prepared more than 2-3 hours is a mode of passion, in a mode of ignorance. But of course, that is not applicable for food in a mode of goodness, which like milk. When we make Bprs, it takes a long time. But that's in the mode of goodness, that's different. That, I could elaborate on this mode of ignorance, but I'm not doing it because it's not palatable to hear all these things. We know that these things are happening. And food's in a mode of passion and food in mode of ignorance. I was on a train in India with some devotees, and we had contact with local people, and we explained about this food in the modes that you cannot. But they said, why can't we eat garlic? What's wrong with it? It's also vegetarian. And we explained that this garlic has an influence of the consciousness. And was Mahavishnu Goswami, the old Gujarati Swami, who passed away 15 years ago. I got somewhat association with him. And he said, he's from Gujarat, he's from Rajkot. In Rajkot, there was like a feast somewhere, and a marriage. And at the marriage, they served so many preparations, and especially those from Punjab. The Punjabis, they liked the preparations with garlic. And he said they were eating this garlic, and a few hours later they were fighting with each other. So it has an influence on the consciousness, which we should not underestimate. But then Srila Prabhupada at the other side says, yes, we should offer everything to Krishna. And sometimes we have food in passion. Yeah, we may use a chutney and so on, which is partially in passion. But we offer it with love to the Supreme Lord, and it becomes transcendental. But we have to be aware that it's best to eat food in the mode of goodness. And other food in the mode of passion can mix with that to a certain extent. But certainly be aware, if you eat a lot of chilies, the mode of passion will enter your mind. That I've seen devotees like chilies, especially in India, some, but then they become easily angry afterwards. So food has influence on our consciousness. It's so important to understand that. So first, a summary from what we have discussed. In verses 2 to 4, we have described those who give up Shastra out of laziness because the required worship is troublesome But at the same time, they worship faithfully demigods. In contrast, we have verse 5, 6, which says that it's not those who have given up Shastra, they are against the Shastra, verse 5 and 6. So that's difference with the verses 2, 4. That's the analysis of Baladev Vidyabhushan. That then moment, so here share. Verse 7, 8, 10. Yeah. The purpose of should be food. The purpose of food is to increase the duration of life, purify the mind, and aid bodily strength. Remnants of food may be eaten only when they are prashadam. Otherwise, remnants are in the mode of ignorance and they increase infection and disease. So that's, it says, all food not offered to Krishna, Prabhupada classifies ignorance. Don't eat it. Never do it. Only things that are offered to Krishna. And that will help us also to control our senses. That just eating healthy food, that Of course, it says here, milk is recommended, but in this age, the milk is very contaminated more and more. If we have our own cows, it's okay. That I traveled many years as a brahmachari with Pralananda Swami serving him. And when he would come at the farm and they had milk from their own cows, he would drink it, otherwise not. That's we have to be careful with this. That today they speak about ahimsa milk and so on. But Prabhupada wanted to have our own farms and produce our own food, because the food becomes more and more contaminated. It looks nice, but there's nothing with no vitamins anymore. The body doesn't need what it requires. It doesn't get what it requires. So that's all a point. Yeah. Of course, it's part of our mission to propagate vegetarianism, but not separate from Krishna. It should be prashadam, Krishna says. That so health and foods that so any questions on this section? That so any questions, considerations? Good.
No, Maharaja. I think those are understandable, and you describe mostly. So you can proceed on from my side. No question.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
From the others, any comments?
Yes, Hari Krishna, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hari Krishna. Yes, in reference to garlic, I don't use garlic now, but understanding that garlic has medicinal properties, like antiseptic, antibacterial. It has some good qualities. Health. How can that be? How can that be utilized, if at all, for medicinal reasons? Is that allowable at some point?
That may be, but it's
see.
always better to search an alternative. Because
Alternative. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm traveling all the time, and I take and I have a doctor in Bulgaria, He's a health
Mhm.
specialist, and he treats me
Yeah.
for more than 15 years.
Mm,
And every day I have to take about 30 food supplements. They're all,
okay.
they're all vegetarian,
Yes.
but that
Yeah.
keeps me going. So there are certainly alternatives for it.
Okay.
That,
Yes.
yeah, because, yeah,
So when you mention alternatives, I'm thinking like for cooking, there's something that's used, hing, H-I-N-G, hing, as
yeah,
an alternative, asafoetida.
asafoetida thing,
Mm-hmm.
that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly it's a question of, because I like also vegetarian cooking. I cook a lot when I'm at my home base, not when I'm traveling, but like sometimes I follow recipes from, not from devotees.
Okay.
And they use 2 eggs. I translate it in, okay, 2 spoons of chia seeds. And then it say
Okay. Yeah.
use onions. Onions, asafoetida, hing up.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you learn how to these alternatives.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you can use any recipe, but you have to translate it.
Okay.
Translate it.
Like,
Radha
like,
Govinda, Radha Govinda in New York will wait for you, cook.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
It's
I
like
heard it. Thank you.
decoding the recipe.
Yeah,
Decoding
decoding the recipe.
Okay.
Yeah, there is that original cookbook book. I gave it to someone, but the Hare Krishna eggless the cake book, how to make cakes.
Okay.
But there's a system in it. If you know the system, you can use it in every cake. That
I see.
how to. It's just a system, a question to learn. So that's part of the devotee's education. Like we follow Bhakti Sastri, that's the philosophy, lifestyle. But then we have also to learn cooking from other devotees. And you have these cookbooks of Kurma and Adiraj, and they are so beautiful. And the higher taste little book.
Yeah, you take.
There's so many things we can make that, and it's a fascinating world. That's fascinating to cook for Krishna. Anyway,
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
We will go into the next session, chapter 17. We will now hear